The draft and free agency are almost here. Just how much work do the Raptors have to do this summer to be relevant in the East again?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's your favorite part of the day. Thanks for making Locked On Raptors your first listen every day. I'm Vivek Jacob. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors for 8 seasons across several outlets. You can follow it all on X, Instagram, and YouTube. And be sure to check out the Locked On Raptors Discord, where you can talk all things basketball, but especially the Raptors. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get this party started. On this Thursday, June the 19th, I'm joined by someone you've grown familiar with, seeing pregame, midgame, postgame during Raptors broadcasts. She's giving you all the little scoops, one of the fastest rising stars in the game. It's NBA and WNBA reporter, Savanna Hamilton.
Hey.
How are you doing, Sav?
I'm good. How are you, man? That's quite the intro. I'm feeling myself right now. Thank
you. You should. And happy to have you on the show. Happy to talk some Raps. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited. Listen, I saw your questions. I'm ready for them. Let's go. Can't agree with me. Can't agree with me. We gotta get straight to it.
So, for this episode, I wanted to pretty much after this, it's going to be all draft centric. Next week is obviously going to be heavy on the draft. So before we got into that, I wanted to look at where the Raptors are right now and kind of be like, hey, this is where the team's at and how much needs to change or can change through draft, free agency, maybe some trades for some big fish to get this team into maybe the upper echelon of the East. So to start off, we want to look at the Raptors starting five. As of right now, it projects to be Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. How do you see this team ranking out, this starting five ranking out in the East?
Yeah, I mean, already right there. Let's see. That's two All-Stars. So you got two All-Stars in the starting lineup. And I think already like especially with Scotty and Brandon being like versatile players. And then of course you have Jakob Poeltl, who has just put up literally one of his career best seasons last season. And he's feeling more comfortable. He likes where he's getting the ball on the court. Honestly, like I see this, and he's literally one of the best centers right now in the league. So I kind of see this starting lineup being like, a top. I would put them top five. I would see them as a top five starting lineup. I think, obviously like there's going to be some familiarizing in the beginning of the season, going up against like really strong teams in the East, of course, like, Cleveland's still a good team. Boston's still a good team. Like there's going to be already like legacy programs that, and by legacy, I mean more recent history legacy, not like, but like that have already like, just have like that roster, that depth, and that familiarity with each other. And this is like all accounting that like, we don't know if they're going to make any moves, but as it sits right this very moment, I would see them as probably slotting it right at number five, just because like, they, outside of the piece with Brandon Ingram, the rest of the guys are pretty, they kind of built something going in from last year. And I think with Brandon Ingram, that's where the fit is going to have to like work itself out on the court. They have luckily an entire offseason, entire preseason to kind of figure that out and what that looks like. And it sounds like Brandon Ingram's one of those all-stars that loves sharing the ball. He made it clear he wanted to play with Jakob Poeltl. That went into his decision of coming to Toronto in the first place. So I think we have a star like him that just kind of wants to do that. I think is very telling.
Yeah, no, I think five is pretty much the range of where you're talking about this team, because let's face it, you're giving Indiana that respect. They're in the finals right now.
You have to. Vivek, I remember when you said that Indiana's going to be in the finals this year. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that too. I'm thinking back. Yeah. Always had Pascal's back. So, I think you put Indiana there. I think you still give the Cavs their respect. They had a 64-win season. I think they got a little unlucky with injuries in that second round matchup. I would have loved to see Garland healthy. Mobley missed that game too. I think that could have been it was an entertaining series, even though it was just 5 games. But I think I would still give the Cavs that respect. The Knicks, we don't know who their head coach is going to be, but I still think, when you look at that lineup with Brunson and Cat and Bridges and OG, I think that's still a team that you would put ahead of Toronto. Then, of course, the Celtics, even without Tatum, you're going to have Holiday, White, Porzingis. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with the trades.
Yep.
But right now, again, we're assessing right now.
Yep.
And so I think you have to give them that credit.
Yep.
And then we got a team that snuck up on us a couple of days ago and got Desmond Bane.
Right?
The Orlando Magic.
Respect on their name.
Yeah, so now they've got a starting 5. That's Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero. And then, you put one of Carter Jr. or Batadze in that starting 5 at the center. And so I think that's the 5th team right there.
Oh, so you have Raptors at 6.
I have the Raptors potentially at 7 because.
Okay. Whoa, okay. So who's your 6 then? Who's your 6? I'm the host now.
Well, it comes down to, as always with this team, the Philadelphia 76ers.
No, I don't believe in their consistency.
That's fair. But they do have the number 3 pick. They do have, I thought, a good acquisition at the deadline in Quentin Grimes. You put Maxey, you put Paul George, you put Joel Embiid, and I get it. I think generally we base a lot of things off of what we've just seen, right? And I think that's where it's like, oh, this team is such a surprise. But it's really like, it all comes down to Embiid, right?
Yeah.
And he hasn't played over 40 games in a minute. And so that's where I think they're an X factor. I would put the Raptors ahead for now.
Yeah.
But I would say I would not be surprised, say, for example, if we go into the season and now it's like, okay, the Raptors might have like the 7th best starting 5. And let's not forget, the Detroit Pistons did some things this season too.
I was just going to say, like, when we talk about the Pistons for a second, because that's definitely the X factor. I don't think anybody saw it coming. Based on the season before this past season, like, they were literally dead last in the league. Remember that game that the Raptors had to play them around, it was just, I think, around December, right after the OG trade. And that was like one of the worst basketball games I think that anybody could say that they've had to experience. And so, I think so, but so for Detroit to go from there, where they're putting a record of like the most losses ever in like sports history, let alone NBA history, to turn around the following season and then make the playoffs and then put up a real fight against New York, where it could have gone. I think it was one of the most underrated playoff series. It's very telling. I would actually probably slot Detroit almost. It's hard because like I want to put them actually under the Raptors, like right after the Raptors.
Okay, so that's where you got them. I actually think, and this might be my hot take for next season, I think Detroit will actually slide just a little bit. I think that they caught a lot of teams off guard this season, and I think they made some big strides defensively. And so I think that part of it is real. I think, especially in that Knicks series, the way they defended was a big part of it. It is going to come back better from the experience that he had in the playoffs. But do feel there was that element of like, no one really saw this team coming. And next season, everyone's going to know what they're about. And so I would not be surprised. Like, they finished with 44 wins this season. I would not be surprised if they still ended up next season somewhere between like 40 and 44 wins.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to dramatically increase their regular season wins, maybe a little bit. The reason why I say that is because of the playoff experience, but then also like they have pieces and we don't know how free agency is going to land with them. We don't know how the draft is going to land with them. Or even if they decide to trade their pick or something like that. So, but without that in consideration, I think the thing that they really kind of bought into and that really caught this generation of basketball off is the fact that they kind of brought back the bad boys, the Detroit bad boys a little bit. And I know that, like, talking to the coach and everything, that they're not trying to, like, they're not trying to be the bad boys, but they are trying to, like, have that same, I guess, energy, the same vibe. And you can see it on the court. Like, they're not afraid to get physical in a league that we haven't seen a lot of physicality in a while. So, and I think I like it because I think it challenges the refs. It challenges the opponents. And I think it's kind of a bit of an X factor when you're playing basketball. Like, oh, we're up against the physical tough team today. Okay. All right, we got to be physical too. But, like, if you're not used to playing like that, then it's a different factor there. So I'm just looking at that solely alone. But I think they would slot in right after the Raptors. I actually would have them. So if you have the Raptors 6, which, okay, but you know what? I'll allow it because Orlando was nice. Orlando was nice. So hopefully that all come together for that. But if you have the Raptors 6, I would put them probably 7th.
Okay. Now, before we move on, I just want to quickly touch on the teams that finished above the Raptors, but maybe next season, we feel that they should be better than. Miami Heat, I feel like the Raptors have a better starting 5.
Yeah, definitely.
The Atlanta Hawks, obviously they had Jalen Johnson suffer that injury, but I still think that they have a better overall starting 5.
Yeah.
And then the Chicago Bulls, how do you feel about them? Enough said.
Nothing moves the needle for me with the Bulls.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got the Raptors 6th right now, maybe 7th. You've got them 5th. And on the other side, we will look at the benches. OLIPOP is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda but want something that supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke or 44 grams in an orange Fanta. OLIPOP flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. I'm pretty big on my health, so swapping out a regular soda for one that actually supports my gut health has been amazing. Trust me, you feel the difference. Get a free can of OLIPOP. Just buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Sav, we are back at it. Gonna look at the Raptors bench depth. And so, to begin, you've got Jamal Shed, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle. We'll see where he figures into all of this. First off, I do think that this is a very young bench. And how do you think that will play out this season where there are playoff expectations and you're looking to take that step from, hey, you've had these growth opportunities, you've had these developmental opportunities where maybe winning isn't necessarily the priority and it's more so about the reps. But now for a young bench to have these expectations where you need to contribute to winning, how do you think that's going to shake out for this group?
I think it's going to be better than you expect. That's my take, because I think we saw the young bench. Like, listen, let's call for what it is. All of last season was development for this bench, like for the young guys. Like, they were always playing. Jacoby hit that game winner. Was it over Orlando, I believe? And nobody saw that coming. They put up quite the fight against Indiana. Like, when everybody, everyone's saying race to the flag. Capture the flag. Sorry, capture the flag. You saw tons of time given to younger teams across the league. But then definitely, like, with the Raptors prioritizing development, you saw tons of time given to the young guys. And I thought the young guys really stacked up well against other teams' bench. They were winning games when they weren't supposed to be tactically, like they're really doing not that they weren't supposed to be, but more like they weren't expected to. And I think that's very telling. And I think that with this offseason now, you give Jamal Shed an extra year. Jamal Shed was already starting to break rookie records of even Scotty's last year, like in assists. You have Grady, who's coming into his 3rd year. We all know that like the sophomore slump is real. He didn't really hit a hardcore sophomore slump though. He kind of just like he had a really hot start and then kind of just like maybe dwindled a little bit, but then like came back up with some consistency before he got injured. And so like I would expect good things, great things from Grady. And then like Jacoby, like I said, like the game winner, like I think our Raptors bench is going to be better than people are going to expect. I feel like that might be the dark horse in the league. Another reason why I would have the Raptors even slotting in 5th in the East. Because and like I said, give them an extra year, give them an extra summer, give them some physical training and everything like that, and they're going to be a lot better. So that's how I see it. What about you? Where do you have our bench? I know this is a very strong East right now too.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think again, one of the biggest strengths of the Pacers has been their depth, right? So I think they're the team that you probably put at the top. Frankly, I think they probably have the best depth in the league, and that's something that's kind of played out even against the Thunder, where obviously the Thunder have the best player in the series, but I think the depth is why they're able to make these comebacks. The depth is why they're able to play relentlessly for 48 minutes. So I have them top of the East in terms of depth. I think the Cavs, like the way they stagger their minutes, I think is what, allows them to kind of take over in these like, late first, early second quarter stretches, the late third or early fourth, and like put these games away. And I think the thing that is probably underrated about the Pistons is their depth. I think that when you look at, especially after the acquisition of Dennis Schroeder, like he fit in so well on that team and like leading that bench unit and like bringing experience to a team that doesn't really have much. And then you have a guy that I thought should have been 6th man of the year, Malik Beasley. And I thought he was incredible. And, all respect to Peyton Pritchard. But I just felt like, when you're on a lesser team, I think it's that much more of a challenge. And so that's why I felt that Beasley should have been the 6th man, but all good. And then the other thing too is like Tim Hardaway Jr. was starting all these games because of the Jaden Ivey injury. And so now you get Ivey back in the starting lineup. Hardaway goes to the bench. That boosts your bench. And then you've still got Isaiah Stewart, who, got injured and missed those playoff games. So I actually think their depth is a bit underrated. And then I think the Celtics depth is one that's arguably going to get worse because they're going to have Sam Hauser coming to the starting lineup for Tatum, most likely. I mean, this is based on what we know now, right? Like we don't know what transactions are going to happen. And then I do think, I just said we don't know what transactions are going to happen, but I do expect Al Horford to leave in free agency because I think that, he's going to recognize that they're not going to be in the contention picture next season. And with him pretty much at the end of the road of his career, I think he's going to prioritize a team that can give him that.
And what do you make of like, and I'd be curious if one of the teams he'd be interested in would be, well, maybe if you want to go to a win now team, then okay, I see that. But like, I'd be curious to see if he would be interested in going to a team like Orlando, because Orlando's building something special. You could see it before your eyes. It's not going to be a pretty team tomorrow. But I'm going to ask you, like, what do you think of their bench? I know I like flipping host now.
So what do I think of Orlando's bench?
Yeah.
So I think they're an interesting team. Like if you were to stack them up against the Raptors, you're looking at Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Wagner obviously was a huge injury for them. That really hurt them. So he should be back. I thought Tristan da Silva had like an interesting rookie year, so he should be better this season. And then Goga Batadze, I think as a backup is pretty decent. So I think that their depth stacks up pretty nicely. I don't think Horford would go to them. I think he would like want a more ready-made contender? Because I think if he has to decide between the Celtics and the Magic, then he'd just say, why not the Celtics?
That's why I stay the same. Yeah, if you're trying, like I said, if you're trying to do a win now team, but like,
Yeah.
arguably the Celtics were supposed to be that win now team. So
Yeah, but that's how much like Tatum's Achilles changes things, right? Like,
facts.
and I think it'd be interesting if Al Horford looked at the Pacers. Like, I think that's a
I can
team
see him
where
there. But you know what? Al Horford's like ketchup. He goes with everything. Like he could go anywhere. He goes with
he
everything.
could. Like he would fit in to their style of play. Like he
Yep.
might have to, get the conditioning up a little bit, and maybe that might be a bit of a challenge at 39. But I think
You're using him more for like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he could still play, and this is why he's still in the league. But you're a guy like Al Horford, you're kind of adding a locker room vet in like experience in the I would see, if I almost see okay, this is a great NBA finals that is unfolding in front of us right now. If Indiana doesn't come out with this one, I could see Al Horford easily landing there. If they do win this one, I don't think that's going to be. I can't see that move happening.
But yeah, anyway, coming back to the Celtics, I do think their depth is gonna take a hit. I think the Sixers' depth is pretty weak still. You're looking at Jared Butler being the backup point guard. Kelly Oubre obviously can give you some scoring. Yabusele had like a pretty decent season last season, but obviously there was just so much opportunity. Someone had to do something with it, with all the injuries. So again, in terms of depth, you would put the Bucks below the Raptors. I think the Raptors have better depth than the Heat, than the Hawks as well. So this is, I think the Raptors here. So I had the starting lineup 6th. I think the bench I could see being, 5th in the East. I think the top 4 in terms of depth would be Pacers, Cavs, Pistons, Magic. I think the Knicks don't have great depth, or at least we haven't seen it, because we know how Tom Thibodeau plays his guys, and now we'll see if the Knicks do anything different with a new coach.
Have they called you yet?
They don't need that. They definitely don't need that.
Hey, never say never, eh?
Yeah, they actually sent in a request, but my
but
office
then I got
fine.
it locked in time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have them 5th. Where do you have the Raptors bench?
Yeah. Okay. So stop stealing my number. I would have them as 5th. Like literally. Like I think for all the reasons, like you literally just went through everything, and like I said, like I think that they are a young up and coming. They're hungry. They've shown tremendous signs of growth last season. And when you stack it against the East, I just don't see a whole lot of teams prioritizing bench these days. Like I feel like everyone's kind of going like starting 5, star heavy. And if you match that with all the injuries that have happened, this past season alone, like a lot of, you kind of start shaking it out, and you're like, after you shake the tree, like you say, oh wait, I think the Raptors, like they're like I said before at the top of the show, I'll say it again, they're top 5, I think. And this is once again without the free agency, without the draft like being in consideration here. Even like what they do with the draft pick, if they decide to trade the draft pick and get like another big name, like they have some great options, I think more than what people give them credit for. And so that's going to get real interesting. But I think as it even is right now, the thing that the Raptors need to really focus on and lock on is this backup center. And this is where I think you look at the draft, you look at free agency, because backup center position, unless you want the hybrid model, like, Jonathan Mobo is kind of like that hybrid center or power forward. You can slot him in a little bit. But, they also got Colin Castleton. But, these guys are like, they're definitely young. This is where the inexperience shows, I think, there. I'm not saying that they can't take steps over the summer and surprise everybody by preseason next year. But I think if you want to really establish yourself, you get a strong, like at least a 5-6 year veteran player in the league that is like a center. And then I think you're flying. I think that might even move the needle to even a top 4, because like I said, teams just don't really prioritize bench as much as their like starting lineup. And but the Raptors, on the other hand, they're kind of like Indiana in the way that they develop overall, and they've kind of been forced to. They've historically, they've always been forced to be the team that develops.
Yeah. All right, there it is. Just bring Al Horford to Toronto then.
Yeah, let's go. Got right in.
All
Right
right,
next to Beer
coming
Temple.
up on the other side, we will get to where we see the Raptors ranking overall. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. If you're a soccer fan, there's 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. If you're not a fan of that footy, there's the NFL. The schedule recently dropped, and Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. You'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. And with the Game Time guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic, will arrive on time, and you'll always get the best price with fees included. And so what you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we are ready to wrap it up. Sav, we've gone through the starting lineup, we've gone through the benches, and to finish up, we talked about, hey, let's see where this team is pre-draft, pre-free agency, pre-trades, so that we kind of can assess maybe at a later date how much further they've gone. And so right now that we've gone through the starting lineup, the benches, where do you see this team stacking up in the East?
Just overall?
Yep.
You know what I'm going to say.
Mambo number 5.
Let's go. Number 5. I really do. I think it's a top 5 team. People might say that's kind of optimistic or that's a little like pushing the ballot maybe, but like I don't really. I'll stand my whole chest. I'll stand on business. Like I think that when you have a center that is highly pursued and sought after, you could tell like just like by all the rumors he's always in. Jakob Poeltl, like he's been playing like Shaq. Like everyone's calling him Jakob Poeltl. Like you can't really money can't really buy like a great center like him. Like yeah, sure it can, but like not really because like there's just not too many like guys like him in the league that are like 7 foot and or above 7 foot and have that concrete stature, that have great passing vision, that can also have a fine touch around the rim. You almost have a trade-off in that position. So that for me moves the needle. And also even in the East, start thinking about the centers in the East. A lot of them are hybrids. A lot of them aren't as concrete. But then after that, okay, you have Brandon Ingram. That was a huge like needle mover. You have Scotty going to play right next to him. And the rest of it, the way it shakes out, like you got some great pieces that slot in around these guys. And I think everybody's hungry, and that's the best part. Everyone's hungry for a championship right now. And whether that is going to be in the forefront or whether that's going to be possible this season to be determined, probably not. But that is the goal. And I think that this season is a huge step towards that. And then as we talk about the bench, like we haven't even talked about Grady. Like enough. We really haven't talked about Grady enough. Like Grady's an amazing shooter. Like there's your shooter. So I think like as long as he keeps on developing himself, there's going to be times where like I could see Grady even stepping into a starting lineup role just because like they need, depending on the matchup, they need like the range as well. And then outside of that, like, the bench is what we already mentioned. But if you look across the East, like, yeah, okay, put some respect on Indiana's name for sure. Put some respect on Boston still. Cleveland, of course. Cleveland's a great regular season team. And like we said, it was unfortunate about their injury, but hopefully they can bounce back a little bit, at least for the regular season. There you go. And then, you could argue like after that, like who takes number 4? It could be Orlando even, and so I think that it's going to be.
What about New York?
And New York. Yeah, that's right. New York. Or it could be 6. Okay, I'm gonna say that Raptors do better than expected. If they're not 6th or 5th, but I'm gonna still stand on my business and say 5th because even with Orlando, they might need some time to like mesh. because even last year they were so injury ridden that like sometimes it doesn't take necessarily like the next season to make the biggest step and like crack a top 3 or top 4.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like,
Brandon Ingram hasn't played a game with these guys.
Yeah, but everybody else has.
Yeah.
So and Brandon Ingram, he's an all-star for a reason. He's not the type of all-star that constantly needs the ball in his hand either. So that's why I'm like, I feel good. I'm gonna lock that down. Lock on number 5.
Okay. We got Sav bringing the positivity at number 5.
I'm positive. I'm trying to be a realist.
Yeah.
I just see the best in this team.
All right, there we go. I still feel like looking at the team as is, the 3-point shooting is still pretty weak. I think, you're depending on Quickly, you're depending on Grady. And beyond that, it's going to be on a night-to-night basis what you get, right? Like you need Brandon Ingram. Like last season, him attempting 6 threes a game. Like you need that at a minimum, I think, on this team. And so, I think that's a big weakness when considering how important that is in the more modern NBA.
You don't want him taking 6 threes?
No, I'm saying he needs to be taking a minimum of 6.
Oh, minimum of 6. Okay.
Yeah, like if anything, that needs to go up with the Raptors because of
I was gonna say volume 3 is like game.
Yeah, exactly. So how willing is he to change his game? Because we know he's like a mid-range assassin, and so he's gonna, I think, have to adapt from that standpoint. And so I still think they have to prove things defensively. I do feel like even though we saw the defensive rating really high, and that was primarily in the second half of the season when they were playing a lot of sub 500 teams. So I do think next year that defense will get really tested in terms of how good it really is. So for me, maybe I'm setting the expectations a little low. Going into the draft and free agency and whatnot, I am going to put this team 7th. I
can see them going as low as 7th and as high as 5th. So they're in that mid-range area. I'm just going to have a bit more confidence in them and say that I would see them at 5th. But yeah, if it's a slow start, if it takes some time to get used to, if their shooting is not hot out of the gate, and they got to find it, and that wouldn't even be, that's not even a hot take like that we've seen so much lack of consistency from 3 historically, then yeah, they could probably slot down to 7. But I think for me, it's like, it's not about how good the Raptors are. It's about the rest of the East as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, everything you're saying makes sense, of course. But then when you look around the rest of the East, I'm like, yeah, but everybody's moving and shaking and things are not 100% certain right now. New players are coming. Yeah. So I digress. I stay strong at 5th. You stay strong at 7th.
Yeah. So just to finish up, over the course of draft, free agency, trades, how far do you think the Raptors can get? Like, say, I think that even with the moves made, barring a Giannis trade, the best the Raptors can probably move up to, in my estimation, is 5 or 4. For you, if you have them 5th, through the draft, through free agency, through trades, and we'll leave a Giannis trade out of this.
Okay.
What do you think? How much progress do you think can be made over the summer?
If Giannis gets landed back, we're coming back on the show, eh?
Yeah. 100%.
That's great, but we didn't even talk about the Bucks as is right now. We haven't even touched them.
Yeah.
But if Giannis, barring that he doesn't come and there's other moves made, that's the ultimate X factor, because literally one piece could be the biggest difference, and you don't even it could literally take you from a 7th team to a 3rd team in the East, or like a 7th or a 5th slot to. I won't ever go as high as number 1 or 2. I won't go as high as number 1 and 2. I feel like
that's the thing for me, right? Stretch. Like I'd still say, like, barring Giannis, like the Cavs, the Knicks, the Pacers, I think it's going to be tough to touch them. Maybe even the Celtics. I
honestly think for me, it's like you might go up a 4th slot.
Yeah.
Because even if there is all that trade action and stuff like that, like, okay, now there's familiarizing themselves with the new player. Like, even if they did get like a big name player, like I just don't see, like, with the rest of the group, them able to like climb the standings. So because the East, like the top of the East is strong, and then the rest of the East is like figuring themselves out. So like that's why I'm like, and the Raptors slot somewhere in between the both of them. So that's why I'm like, okay, the Raptors are strong, but they're also figuring themselves out a little bit going into this season. Like I said, they'll have eyes on a championship, but they're definitely not like the win a championship now team. Meanwhile, the other teams that we're talking about, they are the win a championship now team. And so that's why you can never put the Raptors, in my opinion, for this season as high as a top 1 or 2. And I don't even know if that would be the goal per se,
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I think so I think barring any huge trades, I think you're going to get them as maybe a top 3, but I think that's a little generous.
Yeah. Well, Sav, this was a really fun chat, and I'm glad you were able to join me for this one. For those listening, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Head on over to the Locked On Raptors Discord. The link is in the description. And thank you for making Locked On Raptors your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft, a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive NBA draft analysis from NBA experts to college experts and NBA draft experts. Find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.